Welcome to Positively Nerdy number 8, comic reviews for September 19th, 2012. Hello everyone and welcome to yet another comic review episode right here on Positively Nerdy. Don't forget this is a comic review episode, so you know there will be spoilers. I will shout out specifically Chris Vint. Do not listen to the review of the Star Trek Next Generation comic book. Just throwing that out there, buddy. Don't listen to it. And anyone who hasn't read the issues we're talking about, I announce each issue before we talk about it. If you haven't read it, you don't want to be spoiled, you're going to need to stop your podcast, go read the comic, or skip ahead, or just deal with it. But you've been warned. Thank you so much for joining me. What do you say? We get right into it. We've got superheroes, as always. And also this week we've got plenty of science fiction from both Star Trek and Star Wars, with the Trek actually outnumbering the Wars this week. So let's get right to it. And where is it we always start? Yes.
It's the top of the stack.
What'd you guys think of that? Well, maybe it sucked. I don't know. But we'll try it out and see what people think. But this week's choice for top of the stack is none other, brace yourselves, the Justice League number 0. Yes, you heard me right. Justice League number 0 is this week's top of the stack. And I'm a little bit surprised by it, but not really at all. And if you haven't been reading Justice League, then you'll be very surprised, especially if you decided to pick this up as your gateway into Justice League, but more on that in a moment. If you have been reading Justice League, you know that stealing the show for the last several issues has been the backup story, featuring the tale of Billy Batson, the boy who would be Captain Marvel, or Shazam, as they're calling him now. It's been written by Jeff Johns. It's got terrific artwork by Gary Frank, another issue we'll touch on here in just a second. And issue number 0 of Justice League takes that story front and center, which is appropriate since Justice League is another one of those origin series we talked about with Action Comics number 0, how the whole series is kind of a prequel. So they did something, they had to go back even further. And I wasn't sure what they were going to do with Justice League, obviously until we saw the cover, and then you knew it was going to be all about Shazam, not Captain Marvel. And it's been, like I said, the backup story in Justice League has been absolutely stealing the show, and this brings it right up to the forefront. And we finally get Billy meeting the Wizard and gaining his powers, the powers of living lightning, the very powers of Shazam. I thought it was very interesting that Billy was summoned to this place of magic and then immediately rejected upon his appearance, and then even more so upon his attitude. Billy definitely has a chip on his shoulder, and the Wizard says, "You are not a person of all good. There's no way that you were meant to have this power." Very entertaining argument ensues with Billy telling him that no one is all good. How could you spend all this time looking for a pure good person, and the reason you haven't found him yet is because a pure good person does not exist. So the Wizard looks into Billy one more time and sees that though Billy has a chip on his shoulder and an attitude and does not always do good, certainly there's a want on Billy's part to do good. He wants to be better than he is, so on and so forth. And so the Wizard says that maybe this is maybe your good intentions are enough. Maybe this is why you were brought to me, and tells him to say Shazam. He says Shazam, and nothing happens. And the Wizard tells him point blank that you have to say it with good intentions. You have to say it as if you know that you're going to be transformed to your greatest potential, and then does indeed transform into Shazam. The reason I bring this up, and the reason I think it's interesting, was part of the concern with Shazam being called Shazam was he wouldn't even be allowed to say his own name. Shazam is how he transforms from Billy into now Shazam, Captain Marvel, and how he transforms back. So you have a hero that can't even say his own name. But apparently now there's you can say it different ways and not bring on the transformation. So maybe that's their way of kind of getting over that inconvenient hurdle. Billy kind of goes nuts with the power. He thinks that he's big and strong now. He can do whatever he wants. And the Wizard tries to warn him, you are all that stands now between a great evil, and that he has a responsibility to go along with all his power. Certainly not a direct Spider-Man thing, but being the Spider-Man fan that I am, I always see a Spider-Man connection, even if there is or isn't one. So he returns, he leaves the temple as the Wizard is dying, and kind of goes back right to where he was before, which is outside of the bully's house with his foster brother. I'm not sure exactly how to describe Freddy. And they just decided to smash the family car, since Billy can do that now. And they're trying to figure out exactly how they're going to best take advantage of the fact that Billy is now big and strong. A few little mishaps, some learning curve goes on. They witness a potential mugging that Billy stops, or Shazam, I should say, stops, not knowing his own strength, knocks the guy down the block and into a car, and then proceeds to take a 20 off the woman, who asks how she can thank him, and she's kind of got her eyebrow raised like she means something else. And maybe I'm reading too much into that, but that's how I saw it. And he's like, well, I'm a little short on cash, so she gives him a 20. And Shazam, or Billy, however you want to refer to him, and Freddy decide that now they're going to be rich. And that's how that story ends. There's a backup story that we'll get to in a minute. But I really, really love that we finally got to Shazam. The discovery of Billy through the backup of the issues of the Justice League has been an absolute blast. Gary Frank's artwork is nothing short of phenomenal. I especially appreciate how he draws Billy and how he draws Shazam as an older Billy. It's so spot on, and it's not something that artists always get quite right. And Gary Frank absolutely nails it. My concern now is that eventually another artist is going to be drawing Shazam, and it's not going to be quite right. Kind of like we have with the new costumes. Say what you want about them. I know most people don't like them, and that's fine. Like them or not, you have to admit they look better when Jim Lee draws them than when anybody else draws them, because Jim Lee designed them. And when someone who did not design them has to come in and draw them, they don't ever quite look the same. That's a little bit what I'm afraid of happening with Billy and Shazam. Again, Shazam just looks so much like Billy, but older, and I really hope that the next artist to do him, which will probably be, I believe, Yvonne Race, who's taking over the Justice League soon, will probably be doing some Shazam. So we'll see what happens there. Again, I mentioned before, this is probably not the greatest jumping on point. If you were thinking about using issue number 0 to jump on with the Justice League, your first bit of disappointment will probably come from the fact that the Justice League is absolutely not in this issue at all. Again, if you've been reading Justice League, you'll have no problem with it. You know exactly what's going on. But if you have not, you're wondering to yourself, who's this little kid? Who's this strange guy dressed all in black at the very, very beginning? Why is there a handicapped boy hiding in the bushes? An awful lot of questions you're going to have if you've not been reading Justice League. So this is absolutely not where you should jump on. But at the same time, I always encourage people to be brave and jump in with both feet and pick it up as you go. And as far as comics go, this is a good one. Obviously, it's right at the top of the stack, right? So you could certainly do worse, but just be warned. The backup story features Pandora, who is one of these 3 characters we've started to learn more about, especially heading into the second year of the New 52. The very wizard who just granted Billy the powers of Shazam has come to her and says that we were wrong. This is clearly taking place right after the events in the story, because he is still dying, about to die actually, and says, we sentenced the 3 of you, and the other 2 deserved it. You did not. I'm sorry. But at the same time, this is still your punishment. And even though we were wrong, you still have to deal with this. And she's been trying to open up a skull, which I think is some sort of reference for Pandora's box. And he tells her that only the strongest of heart or the darkest can open the box. So I assume this is I think it's a fair assumption that this is going to lead into Shazam and Black Adam being the 2 that can open Pandora's box, and the battle will be for that. And this will probably lead into the entire Trinity War that we've been getting teased with for some time now. And speaking of teases, it ends with the tease of The Question. New series coming to us from Jeff Johns, and, well, that's not true. The backup is written by Jeff Johns and Ethan Van Sciver. I'm not sure if Question's getting his own series or not. He's not getting a 0 issue, which makes me think he's not ready to make his debut just yet, but maybe he will be appearing in Phantom Stranger or one of the other new series, I guess the 3rd wave they're calling it, that just launched. So we shall wait and see, but there it is, Justice League number 0, this week's pick for top of the stack. And if it hadn't been Justice League, losing by just a hair is actually our second and final for this week 0 issue from the New 52, Wonder Woman, written by Brian Azzarello with art by Cliff Chiang. Wonder Woman has absolutely, for me, been one of the surprises of the New 52. I would actually put it, in terms of consistency over the first year of the New 52, right behind Batman. I think Brian Azzarello is doing some terrific things with this series, and this Zero issue is no exception. Going back to what a Zero issue should be, this is not really an origin, but certainly a here's what happened before issue number 1 with Diana growing up in Themyscira. See, back when I did written columns, it was so much easier. I just type it out, didn't have to worry about sounding like a jackass when I mispronounced something, and that sadly was me sounding like a jackass. So I'm going to unedit that and leave that in there for all of you to enjoy. I'm a moron. Anyway, this is her training, her living in paradise, because I know how to pronounce that word, we'll call it that. And very, very short-tempered. She's unaware that her father is Zeus and will be for some time, but is being watched quite carefully by Ares, or as he's referred to in this, simply War. And he agrees that she has an incredible amount of potential and that he will train her on every full moon. So once a month, he's taking her and training her, in addition to all of her normal Amazonian studies. And he basically leads her. You've trained with me. He begins training her on her 12th birthday. It's now your 13th birthday. And on birthdays, they have to offer a tribute to the Queen and to the rest of the Amazons. And he sends her into the maze of the Minotaur, because the Minotaur's head is the greatest prize that she could offer, and that's how great of a warrior she is. She defeats the Minotaur but refuses to cut its head off. Instead, she believes that mercy is stronger than pure brutality and violence, and actually then has to fight War to kind of prove her point. What I'm glossing over, unfortunately, and should have mentioned at the get-go, is that this is the quote-unquote lost issue of All Girl Adventure Tales for Men number 41, assuming that it was written many years ago when a golden age, very much a golden age comic, and it very much reads and is written and is presented as a golden age comic. Very over-explanatory dialogue, very unnecessary caption boxes that describe the action and lay out all those things that modern comic book storytelling tells in either a different way or just assumes that you know. And I think that was absolutely fantastic on Azzarello's part to not only make it a prequel, a Zero issue as it was meant to be, but then to take it back even further to kind of the days when Wonder Woman was created and really tell a story in that style. I think that was absolutely brilliant and really adds a lot to this fun one-shot that is not going to have too much impact on the rest of the story. You can kind of get away with those little tricks. And I really appreciate Brian Azzarello for actually doing that. I thought it was terrific. Moving away from DC Comics and the New 52, we are boldly going to Star Trek number 13. It sucks to be a red shirt in the Star Trek universe. People who don't even watch Star Trek are well aware of this joke, and as it turns out, even the characters within the Star Trek universe are aware of the joke. Command wears gold, the science brainiacs, as they put it in this issue, wear blue, but the grunts, everybody else, they wear the red, and they are all aware of the jinx that are on Red's uniforms and the mortality rate among Red uniforms. They definitely play it off as a bit of an inside joke that happens even in universe, not just the fans watching this show at home. And the story actually centers on a character we know from the movies, Henderoff, who was the big guy who punched Kirk at the bar when he was trying to hit on Uhura at the beginning, and also the security officer that apprehended, I guess. He didn't really arrest Kirk and Scotty when they first beamed onto the Enterprise from Delta Vega, I believe is the planet they were on. He is the red shirt, and in this particular issue, he and many other red shirts actually go on an away mission, along with Kirk and McCoy and Spock and a bunch of other people you know aren't going to die. And miraculously, despite everything that happens, every red shirt goes through some sort of calamity, and yet they all make it back to the Enterprise. There is a red shirt that they all know that was on a different mission that did not make it back, and they have a round on his behalf. But I thought it was a really entertaining look at kind of the rest of the crew and the joke of the red shirts. Really called to mind one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, which is Lower Decks, which is kind of the same thing. It focuses on the characters you don't know, and there's even actually a civilian they throw in there and other lower-ranking members of Starfleet and their relationship with each other, and their superior officers. Each one has a relationship with, say, Geordi or Riker or Worf, and that is absolutely one of my favorite episodes. So this instantly called that to mind and helped this become one of my favorite episodes of this series. I think the series is absolutely on fire right now. We just had the 2-part Tribble ish story, I should say, which was fantastic. This was a lot of fun, and as we build closer and closer and get closer and closer to the movie, it should continue to remain just as strong as it has been. So that's an encouraging thought. Given the success of the Star Trek comic from IDW and success of the Star Trek The Next Generation Doctor Who crossover comic, which you can hear me and my friend Chris Vint review on the previous episode of Positively Nerdy, number 7, it's not surprising that IDW has now decided to launch a Star Trek The Next Generation comic. I don't know if this is meant to be a miniseries or a new ongoing. I probably should have found that out before I started recording, but I think it's a mini. It's got like a name, so it's called Hive, and deals with the Picard and the Borg. The Borg also featuring prominently in the Next Generation Doctor Who crossover. This story takes place after the events of the films, and if you read some of, I guess, what could be considered the Star Trek expanded universe, Captain Riker is captain of his own ship now, reconvenes with Picard and the rest of the Federation because deep space outposts have reported an awful lot of Borg activity. They are amassing and heading toward Earth. Understandably, Picard and the Federation freak out. Picard begins to hear the collective in his head again, and they basically come to the Federation and say, we went to another dimension looking for more biological and technological distinctiveness to add to our own, and basically they overstepped their bounds. They came across a species that they couldn't handle. They tried to leave. The species followed them back. The species is now wiping out the Borg, and they want the Federation's help because they see the Federation as another foe that they've never beaten. So maybe they can help them against this new threat. Picard was like, even if we agree to this, how could we work together without becoming part of the Hive Mind? They agree to send an ambassador, and it's 7 of 9 from Star Trek Voyager. However, she's all decked out in her Borgness. She looks as she did when they first introduced the character before she was cut off from the Hive. The collective, I should say. And I should mention that this first issue is bookended by events in the 29th century, with Picard fully assimilated by the Borg, and ends with him reaching out to Data, who he has reassembled to help him combat the Borg at this late stage, some 500 years after Picard made a mistake. He realizes he's made a mistake and now wants Data's help, Data being half assimilated himself, to go back and fix the problems of the past. A couple of problems. It's a pretty good issue. I like the art a lot. I always like a Borg story. However, my problems with this stem from the fact that this is way too much like too many other Borg stories. It's actually a lot like what's going on in the Doctor Who Star Trek The Next Generation crossover right now. It's a lot like the entire premise of Voyager and Species 8472, if I remember correctly. I'm not even looking that up, but I think that's what they're called. When the Borg tried to assimilate a species that they couldn't handle from not really another dimension, but another place. And also certainly events of First Contact and any other time travel episode where a character survives and they have to go back or find a way to get a message back to the past to warn them of their mistake. This is all just a little bit too repetitive. I like the Picard-Borg dynamic, and I think there's a lot they could do with it. This being bookended by the 500 years later story with Picard being a full-on Borg and things. Not really sure how that should all fit in. It's a little frustrating to see what feels like after the first issue to be the same old thing. The big question mark, and actually the only reason I want to keep reading, well, not the only reason I should say, but one of the main reasons I want to keep reading is why is 7 of 9 a Borg again? That doesn't make any sense to me. This is long after the events of the season finale of Voyager, and 7 came home with them, if I remember correctly. Maybe I don't remember the ending of Voyager. Maybe I should look that up. But anyway, that's very confusing to me. I'm not really to bail on this series, or this miniseries, whatever it is, just yet, but a little disappointed, given the nature of the quality of the other Star Trek series right now, that this one wasn't quite up to snuff, unfortunately. And as seems to be the case these days, if we got Star Trek, we've also got Star Wars. And this week it's Star Wars, Darth Vader and the Ghost Prison, number 5. I have discussed at length how much I enjoy this series and how much I enjoy seeing Vader as a badass. This is Vader unleashed, and actually we even get to see the Emperor unleashed in this issue, which was a lot of fun. We don't get to see the Emperor in action nearly enough, although if previews are to be believed, this coming season on Star Wars The Clone Wars will give us a lot of the Emperor in action, but that's neither here nor there because we're talking about Vader in the Ghost Prison. This is the finale of the 5-issue mini, and basically Tarkin, Vader, and the Emperor, along with the liberated prisoners from the secret Jedi prison, take back the Empire and overthrow their would-be overthrowers, if that's even a sentence. And some spectacular action, a lot of force lightning going around, a lot of lightsabers, a lot of really interesting goofy looking at times, sometimes scary aliens that you're only going to find in a Star Wars-esque universe. Just action-packed, a lot of fun, a lot of crazy things going on, and this is a brilliant culmination of what has been a brutal and entertaining Star Trek mini. The art is exactly the same as it has been all along, but for some reason I found it much more dynamic in this issue. It worked a lot better for me than it has been in the past, and something about just the action and the excitement of the finale of the series helped the art along. Absolutely fantastic. And our main character, who we've been following all along, gets promoted by the Emperor, and then Vader shares his opinion on the matter. And that's certainly an evil tease, but I will not spoil the ending. Let's just say this guy fits in with Vader and the Emperor way more than you ever thought he would after reading the first issue. So I'm not going to spoil everything in this one, but just know that this finale does not disappoint. If you've been reading the series so far, you will absolutely love this issue as well. And if you've been waiting for the collected edition, since it is only a 5-issue mini, I can't blame you for that. But I can thoroughly encourage anyone to check this issue out, or this series out, once it becomes collected. And Dark Horse is usually pretty timely on the trades. So this will certainly be traded, I would think, very, very soon. And if you know someone who likes Star Wars and comics, would make a terrific Christmas present, because that, unfortunately, is right around the corner. I saw Christmas trees and yard ornaments and light up reindeer and stuff at Target the other day. Can you believe that? That's outrageous to me. Retail, what are you going to do? Let's wrap up this week with Ultimate Comics Ultimates, number 15. And actually we have another Ultimate Comics Spiderman, number 15, that we're going to talk about as well. I kind of mentioned them all at the same time because they're all part of the same story, or so they would have you believe. But more on that in a minute. Let's start with Ultimates number 15. This is Cap in Texas wanting to go to California. California and pretty much the whole West Coast have started their own independent nation and have lined up drones along the border to stop anyone from coming into California. I believe that's anyone caught crossing the border into California or the West Coast states will be shot down by these drones. And as you might imagine, not everything goes to plan, and the drones go haywire and start killing anyone and anything in their path. The government decides not to step in because this is California's fault or the West Coast's fault, and they're their own nation now. Let them deal with their own problems. Captain America decides it's still all America, and he and the Ultimates rush into action with Captain America. Well, quite frankly, Captain America being a complete and total badass. Some of the best Captain America action, at least in an Ultimates comic, since the very, very beginning of Ultimates with Mark Miller and Brian Hitch. Like, this is awesome Captain America stuff. Absolute incredible props to artist Billy Tan. And got to give Sam Humphries, the writer, some love too as well, since this is just a whole lot of awesome Ultimate action. And we've not seen that in a long, long time, despite the best efforts of many talented creators since then. This feels the most like the Ultimates that was originally introduced to us, well over a decade ago. And as this is going on, there's a new election because the president has been killed, and there's a special condition that anyone can be elected. Anyone can be written in. There are candidates, of course, but anybody can be written in or voted. And as this is all going on, it's being broadcast across the world, and people see that Captain America is actually doing something instead of their government. So this ends with Captain America being voted President of the United States of America. Very, very interesting, very, very fun. We'll touch on a few things with that after we talk about Ultimate Comics Spider-Man number 15. which I read after Ultimates number 15, because Ultimates number 15 carries the banner, Divided We Fall, and issue 15 of Ultimate Spider-Man carries the banner, United We Stand. Now, to anyone who understands English, Divided We Fall should come before United We Stand. That's just the way it should be, especially when you're spoiled a few days before you get your comics that Captain America is going to be voted the president. Not only does this not really take place after Ultimates number 15, it's hard to tell if it takes place during Ultimates number 15, before Ultimates number 15. It's pretty much impossible because Cap is in New York on the helicarrier, not in Texas or California, so that's a little bit frustrating. I would expect the Ultimate Universe to be a little more streamlined in their continuity, since there are only 3 books out right now, and they're doing this big event, and they still can't get it right. It's a little bit frustrating. Just looking through this as I'm talking about it, I didn't notice until just now that Miles is wearing a t-shirt that says the Wesley Crushers. That's pretty awesome. But basically, school is dismissed for Miles because of the events that are going on in the rest of the world. There's a line by the principal that I thought was clever on Bendis' part, that I know it seems like nothing has been going on because we've been trying to go about business as normal. Translation, we haven't been tied into the crossover as much as we should have been, and now all of a sudden we will be. Miles' friend helps him to come to the decision that he's got all this free time now, no school, and your parents are working. You need to go join the Ultimates. So he heads toward the Ultimates base and the helicarrier and comes face to face with Captain America. And Spider-Man reporting for duty, sir. I want to join up. I want to be an Ultimate. I'm ready. And that's where it ends. Good issue. They pretty much all are, saying that a Bendis written issue of Ultimate Spider-Man, they've all been Bendis written issues, of saying that Ultimate Spider-Man is good is like saying fish swim. At this point, it's just redundant and a well-known fact, and you sound like an idiot if you keep reminding people of that. But that's kind of my job with this podcast, so I'm reminding you of that. I have to admit, I really, really love Captain America being president. There was certainly the gimmick in the comics, and I don't know nearly as much about it as I should, of Captain America being president in the 70s or the early 80s. There was the comic storyline with Captain America being president or wanting to run for president or something like that. Again, something I probably should have looked into before I started recording. But I think this event, though it's it's a little discombobulated, is still a lot of fun. And where we go from here with Cap being president and the Ultimates, including Spider-Man, apparently, trying to clean everything up, I think is a lot of fun and really terrific. So those were the comics of the week. Hope you guys enjoyed. I know we've been doing a lot of comic review episodes. Actually, I think just about every other episode so far has been comic reviews, and hopefully you guys are enjoying that, because comics are certainly my first love when it comes to pop culture and all things nerdy. But many, many other topics in the works. Right around the corner, we were just talking about Christmas, but literally right around the corner is October. And October for me and many, many other people means Halloween. So I'm, as we speak, recruiting many, many friends of mine known throughout the internets to get together and come onto my podcast, and we are going to talk about all things Halloween. So look forward to those episodes, kind of scattered here and there throughout October, and a lot of other non-comic book reviewed episodes. But at the same time, if you like comic review episodes, there will be plenty of them as well. We're just going to start trying to mix and match and get some more stuff in there. So hope you guys are enjoying the comic reviews. Hope you guys are enjoying Positively Nerdy. Please help me get the word out about this new podcast. New podcasts need a lot of support and help from listeners, and I know there are listeners out there. I get excited every time I see my hits and how many people are actually listening to this podcast. So if you are listening, be sure you're telling your friends about it. And thank you so much for your support. And always remember to celebrate your fandom.